Welcome and thank you for joining me in this day one of the BSI Standards Conference and Awards. I hope to see many of you tomorrow in person in central London. We've got just under an hour together, and I'm hoping you'll be very kind to me and share your stories by typing them into the Q&A, which you should have access to at the bottom of your screen, and taking part in some polls we've got lined up for you as well. If you've got any questions you want to ask, you can type them in the Q&A as well. But if you've got stuff you want to share amongst the group, then please put that in the chat, and then everybody can see that. Not everybody will be able to see the questions once they're typed in. So I'm going to start with a brief explanation of what the Sustainability Standards Network is. Then, as I said, I'd like to share some of my personal motivations and learn some of yours, and share some observations with everyone in the chat as we go along. Time is precious, literally, for net zero. Our supposed halfway point of 2030 is only 8 years away, and 2050 will be upon us before we know it. Before I joined BSI, I started at the end of 2020. Research had found, internal research had found that there were some knowledge gaps on many of the committees when it came to the environment and sustainability in its broadest sense, in which I mean, all 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals, he said, flashing the lapel badge for the Sustainable Development Goals. So the Sustainable Standards Network, it was born as a result of that research. The network is now a group of people drawn from NGOs, charities, professional bodies, and a few individuals with a deep understanding of sustainability. Their specialisms vary enormously. What they all have in common is a passion to address the climate crisis. They're all gifting their knowledge, time, and research to BSI to help make our standards the most up-to-date, best practice available. They're acting as members of society and not employees of their charities. But this being the world of sustainability, you'll find the objectives of many of those charities and organisations align with the causes and purposes that they pursue as well. So it's a win-win situation, hopefully. With their input, we can create world-leading standards to deliver social, environmental, and financial gain for a new carbon-free age where people live in dignity, free from poverty, with access to energy, food, goods and services, and of course, good health and education services. All in line with the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. That's the network's purpose. Its mission is that of the BSI, to share knowledge, innovation and best practice to help people and organisations make excellence a habit. Here are the logos of 38 of the network's current members, 45 current members as we stand. The books are growing, the numbers and names are growing constantly. Almost half are environmental charities, you can see there. The others cover the transport, fashion, business, health, and urban sectors, society, and devolved regions. All representatives are at a senior level, many of them directly involved with policy setting. Have we got a question? No? Okay, I'll carry on. So where does Sustainability Standards Network sit within the organisation, within BSI? Well, it's within policy. And the vision is primarily to feed into standards by either being on committees or contributing to standards through professional or public consultations, but also contributing to BSI's mission through other means like events, activities, online discussions, reports, polls. Hopefully some of the information gleaned from this session this afternoon will add a bit more insight into how we can move forward on sustainability. We'll help identify trends, so a bit of horizon scanning and provocations, and being a critical friend for internal sustainability planning. The London Declaration is a commitment by most of the world's national standards bodies to actively favour climate science, factor climate science into the development of standards. It's also a pledge to involve those who are most vulnerable to climate change in the standard development process. And Tom Cantelon, my colleague who runs the London Declaration, is currently presenting right now. Unfortunately, we weren't able to align them, so it would have been great to have had the two side by side rather than, well, literally side by side. But you'll be able to catch up with the recorded version of his presentation in a day or two. Our 2050 World is another BSI initiative. It's collaboration to accelerate the transition to net zero using standards and enable the planet to halve emissions by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2050 at the latest. I don't know if we'll be able to find out. I'm just going to check with the lovely people behind the desk there. Are there any network members online? If you are a network member, please type hi into the chat, and we'll see if you're present. And thank you for joining us if you are. Are there any other questions of the network at the moment? Anything in the Q&A?
No, not at the moment.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Moving on then, members of the network can also, of course, share information with their supporters. So Wildlife and Countryside Link is one of the UK's largest environmental wildlife groups, gathering networks in England. It's vast, with a huge number of followers, so they can disseminate information and have offered to do that very kindly. They can share data and resources as well. Greener NHS undertook some research of their own on the disposal of menstrual products and incontinence pads and the carbon associated with that. And that links neatly with CH338 on menstrual products, a standard that's underway at the moment. In the case of the RSPB, they've invited us to visit Hope Farm, a commercially operated farm which has successfully reduced chemical use, boosted biodiversity, improved soil health, and continues to operate at profit. So that's quite a resource to be able to take somebody to when we're looking at standards on regenerative agriculture, say, or any of the other standards we've got coming through the pipeline at the moment on farming. Going back to that CH388 menstrual product standard, sometimes there's more than one network member working on a standard, but in these cases, each one brings a different area of sustainability expertise to the table. Like all committee members, they remain independent and are representing their sectors and contributing to the common good, ensuring standards are not just best practice, but are gilt-edged as well. So Sustainability Network Year 1 in numbers. This is what we've been up to in the past 12 months. The website is up and running, as you can see. 6 meetings held over the course of the year, and a panel discussion on the Consumer Forum Conference and Sustainability. Presentation here today. 45 members recruited so far and counting. 10 working on standards, although that's dropped back 1 number because one of the standards has been withdrawn for technical reasons and it's being reassessed. So it's 9 at the moment, but hopefully we'll be back up to 10 when that standard is reintroduced. And then 2 recordings exploring new areas of sustainable work in the farming and fashion sectors. And you can see those via our website. If you have a look at my profile, there's a link to the website there. So a bit more about me, animal husbandry skills. Well, this is me aged, I don't know, about 6 and 10. BSI is a profit for purpose body. My motivations align very well with that. I'm a founder of the National Park City Foundation, the movement behind London being declared the world's first national park city. Adelaide is now the second announced one. And I think Glasgow may well be the third, but they've got competition from Toronto and Cardiff and others. The aim is to make cities greener, healthier, and more equal. So I grew up in Herefordshire. As you can see, a bit of the Herefordshire countryside there in the photos. Give me a hands up, sorry, type cider in the chat if you're from Herefordshire. It'd be nice to know if there's a fellow Herefordian somewhere in the background there. And again, someone will let me know if you're there. Herefordshire, if you don't know, it is on the Welsh borders. And our remote rural home had a couple of orchards, vegetable beds. We kept chickens for eggs and brought most food from a weekly Friday market in the nearest town, which was some 12 miles distance. All the shops closed on a Sunday, so it was not particularly great for teenagers or growing up there. So I had a lovely time, but if you're a teenager, you'll know what I mean. There were no supermarkets. The local school had a 3 Fs approach to post-school opportunities. It was either farm, factory, or farming. And well, my dad worked in a factory, and being a rebellious teenager, I didn't want to do what my dad did, and I'd adopted a punk attitude to authority, so the army was out, which left farming. I now have an O-level in agricultural science from that old school. And as you can see, practicing from a very early age out on the farm. And I'm not feeding beer to that poor lamb. It was being bottle fed because it had been orphaned, and there's milk in that beer bottle. A quick pub quiz fact for you, one to remember: you could eat a different variety of cider apple every day of the year without a repeat, because there were more than 365 heritage varieties. Many have been lost since in the last few decades, when farmers were financially encouraged to rip out their hedges and their orchards to create bigger fields to grow food crops. We're now encouraging farmers to restore hedges, but we can't restore those lost varieties of cider apple. At that time, well, there was lots and lots of wildlife around, but since the 70s, we've lost more than 60% of our insects. There's been a similarly scary decline in birds. Those small Herefordshire farms have mostly gone, replaced by big industrial farming techniques, high-tech tractors doing most of the work. And a lot of polytunnels have appeared, enabling strawberry growing through 6 months of the year. And as our nature dwindled, unseen toxins entered the air we breathe and the water in our streams and videos. Fast forward to the beginning of the new millennium, and I'd left farming to become a journalist and then moved into conservation with the London Wildlife Trust, and then for more than a dozen years with the RSPB. All that time, our air was getting worse and worse, and nature was being lost. And then there was the tragic death of Ella Kissy Deborah, which shook me quite deeply at the time. Before her totally avoidable death, nature had been telling us that all was not well, but we'd ignored that. Ella wasn't the first person to die as a result of our impact on the environment, but the first in the UK officially linked directly back to air pollution. She drives me every day to try harder so others don't suffer as she and her family bravely did. If you have experienced climate change on a personal level, then please do share that. Type the details, please, into the chat so everyone can see it. It'd be a good place to share that, and it'd be really interesting to find out how climate change is impacting us all on a daily basis now. We are decarbonising our world. BSI's net zero work and the London Declaration are vital tools to deliver air fit to breathe, water safe to swim and drink. But warmer, wetter weather. The report published at the beginning of COP27 by Climate Action Tracker predicted that even with the latest pledges to act, world temperatures would rise 2.7 degrees Celsius above industrial levels by 2100. The UN climate body, the IPCC, has said keeping temperature rises below 1.5 degrees Celsius rather than 2 would mean 10 million fewer people would lose their homes to rising sea level, a 50% reduction in the number of people experiencing water insecurity, and a reduction in coral reef loss from 99% to 70%. We'll know more by the end of the week when COP27 winds up, hopefully with a plan of action or actions. It'd be lovely to see that. We'll return to our thoughts on COP in a little while. But I just wanted to ask you a quick question here. Pause for your experiences of climate change from coastal erosion and flooding. How real or personal is it? Has anyone got a story on how climate change has impacted their lives? Let's just do a quick check back with our tech people.
There is nothing here as yet.
Nothing here as yet. Do share those experiences. As I say, it'd be lovely to hear those. So one I heard the other day, Mo, one of my neighbours, I live in East London, he's from Bangladesh, and his parents, sisters and brothers and their children have all lost their homes and all their belongings due to the floods this year. So the local community is doing a lot to rally around and support him and his family, but it's a drop in the ocean compared with the sort of help that is required in places like Bangladesh. Another good example is I worked on a sand lizard reintroduction program where we created special banks on Heathland in Surrey and released 150 young sand lizards to recolonize an area where they'd become extinct. All was going well. Project was a success. And then we had a very hot, dry year, and there was a heath fire that turned their habitat into ash. Some were rescued, some survived, but many of those sand lizards were lost. The project is continuing, and slowly the population is growing again. Hopefully you've had time to write a few of those experiences in the chat, and all of the stuff we'll be gathering today will be collated and written up and put on our website, on the Sustainability Standards Network website. Climate change is impacting supply and demand too. Last month, the Office for National Statistics revealed the price of staples such as pasta, tea, and chips have surged in the UK in the past year, with cooking oil shooting up 65%. Just this morning, we had details of inflation in the UK. Prices risen 11.1%, we were told this morning, in the year to October, the highest for 41 years. The more frequent that these extremes of weather become, the deeper the climate crisis gets as well. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization has warned if the current rates of degradation continue, all of the world's topsoil could be gone within 60 years. That's where we grow our crops. The causes of soil destruction include chemical-heavy farming, deforestation, which increases erosion and global warming, and we have quite a lot of standards which can help with that. This was the point, I suppose, where if I were a journalist and I had a MP nearby, I'd be asking, how much is a pint of milk, do you know? To see how in touch they are with society. Milk is now retailing at around about a pint, for those who want to prepare themselves for that question, should it come your way. And a loaf of bread, 120 to 150, or if you go to my local farmers market, as I did at the weekend, it's almost £5 for a nice artisan sourdough. A stick of butter, well, more than £2 these days. So yeah, things are rising, and the cost of living is getting ever higher. Then, of course, we get on to the humanitarian crisis as well. We're at crossroads. We need change. We need change on a massive scale. We need guidance we can trust. We need tried and tested actions which deliver the right outcomes. Best practice agreed by trusted experts who understand the implications. Well, luckily, hot off the press last week and launched at COP27, we're proud to present the ISO Net Zero Guidelines, as I say, officially launched Friday 11th in Egypt. They were commissioned by Our 2050 World, a global collaboration to accelerate action towards net zero through standards, ISO's Net Zero Guidelines. There's the link there at the bottom of the page to get a screen grab or make a note of that. The collaboration includes ISO, the Race to Zero campaign, and the UNFCCC's Global Innovation Hub. And it's free, won't cost you a thing, just the time to download it off that web page there. BSI's vision is to be the business improvement company which enables organizations to turn standards of best practice into habits of excellence. As shown in the slide there, we've committed ourselves to include sustainability in all standards, new ones and old ones under review. Let's pause there to see what you've been typing in the Q&A, if anything. Have we got anything? 23% of all UK GDP growth in the current century is attributable to the impact of standards, and 38% of all productivity growth. What we're missing is a measurement of our collective impact on society and the environment. ESG reporting is increasingly used by businesses, but the range of ESG metrics and disclosure frameworks used is vast and varies by sector, size, complexity, as well as location. Some have been discredited as greenwash. So tree planting is often cited as a way to offset carbon. Analysis of published global promises for tree planting found we'd need an area 5 times bigger than India for all of those promised trees. Our planet doesn't have enough suitable land for that to happen, and we can and should add the creation of mangrove swamps, seagrass meadows, heathlands, mudflats, all good alternatives to tree planting and dwindling habitats. We need to be smarter about mitigation, but cannot afford to do so at the expense of decarbonisation. The Net Zero Guidelines address these issues. I urge you to download a copy of the address, still there at the bottom of the screen. A lot of hard work by dozens of experts from around the world have gone into making it a reality. There is a disconnect between the horrors we've all witnessed of forest fires, floods, earthquakes, droughts, and the millions of displaced people caused by exceptional climatic events. Somehow the warnings, the ones that were declared at the beginning of COP27, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, generally not changing the way we live, what we consume. Science writer Tim Chuck produced this infographic illustrating how much land would be required if 7 billion people lived like the population of 9. By the way, did you notice yesterday we passed 8 million officially world population? across the 8 billion mark, with suggestions it will peak at 10 billion in a couple of years' time and then level off. So yeah, an awful lot of us around. In 2012, selected countries from Bangladesh, the United Arab Emirates, were, as you can see on that graphic, needing more space than we have on our own planet. This data has been critiqued. Some of it was dismissed. Others have promoted it ever since. It remains a hot topic in some circles. What it does illustrate, though, I think everyone will agree, is that we are consuming more than the planet can give, especially when you take carbon into account. So that's been going on for a decade, at least more, really. Well-publicized insect loss and habitat loss has been going on for longer than we were aware of the carbon build-up, of course. Why we've not been doing more to escape the obvious conclusion of where it's leading is the big question. I've got some thoughts on this, but again, it would be lovely to hear yours if you have a chance to put some in the chat. It's drastically changing our lifestyles. And 84% believe their personal actions can improve the environment. Is it because the problem appears so large that individual actions don't matter? The annual WIN World Survey, exploring the views and beliefs of almost 30,000 individuals among citizens from 34 countries across the globe, found 84% believe in individual action. So how do we bridge this gap between the obvious need and desire to act and the lack of progress towards net zero? Again, your thoughts, please, in the chat. These will all be useful and will be shared at a later date. So the latest data coming from COP27 event in Egypt is bleak. It's all there on the page for you. But let's have some poll fun now. Wake up, it's getting towards the end of the day. So 6 quick questions with a straightforward yes or no answer. Hopefully this tech is going to work here. Question 1, would something as crass as a national or international daily carbonometer or carbon count be useful? Would it help? Please do let us know on the vote there. And second question, should we have a collective daily action beamed to our phones and our laptops, something that we should undertake? Yes or no? This is without worrying about how you'd measure it, track it, or enforce this sort of stuff. So it's just a snapshot of an idea to see what the thoughts are on this one. If they beamed ideas, an action that you could undertake each day, would that help? Question 3, should we all be obliged to grow some fruit or vegetables in our gardens or communal allotments or window boxes? There we go. And again, a yes or no, and nothing's going to be enforced here. It's just, should we be obliged? Excellent. Question 4. Would a personal or company daily carbon allowance be a good idea? One where your supplies are cut off if you go over your limit. So you have a personal or company daily carbon allowance. It's rationing in a way, isn't it? Let's see. What do you think? Yes or no? And question 5. What about personal weekly energy rations? Would that help if you had a weekly energy ration? Would that help you limit your carbon? Yes or no? There we go. Finally, question 6. Would a high corporate tax on carbon be acceptable, following the old polluter pays rationale? How do you feel about that one? Okay, thank you very much. I'm hoping all those results were visible for everybody, I take it. Can I just double check with that, tell people that's the case, or do I need to read out those results?
We can go from the start and I can share the results as we go through.
Okay, let's do that then. So to question 1, how did the votes go? Hopefully you can see that. So 33 yeses and 67% no. That was on the daily carbon count showing increases or decrease. That's the carbonometer idea. Question 2, how do we do on that one? Should we have collective daily action beamed to our phones and laptops? So 75% yes, 25% no. Question 3, obliged to grow fruit or vegetables? 42% yes, and 58% no. You prefer buying them from the shops, but I warn you that it increases the cost. They're far cheaper to grow yourself, although it takes a while if you want a banana the following morning. Question 4, how do we do there? Personal company daily carbon allowance. There we've got a 60-40 split on that one, 6% in favour of that. And question 5, the personal weekly energy ration. Slightly different to question 4, but a similar sort of idea. And again, yeah, more in favour than against. And finally, question 6, high corporate tax on carbon. Okay, I'm going to sell that idea and see where we go with that. So thank you very much for taking part in that. I really do appreciate it. And please do cheer me up tremendously. Write a few of your experiences in the chat or in the Q&A.
I do have a question for you, Tim, if you wish.
Yes.
This is from Mac, and it says, don't you think we need to encourage or even scare people by example linked to the live example?
Personally, no, I don't think. I think we've had enough scare stories. There have been some horrific stories, particularly recently on the news bulletins, of the impacts of climate change. And I think scaring people can have a negative impact, either because people think something is too far away or is not within their sphere of influence, or there's little they can do practically themselves. That I think it puts some people off acting. So I think we just need to make people aware of the everyday impacts as much as anything. So say the maybe not
the results in the chat.
Maybe not the impacts.
You know, hold on, if I just text, you want me to copy that into the chat? I don't want to...
Sorry, we've got some interference in the background. So yeah, I don't think scaring would help. So to sum that up, I think we need to know about the daily impacts on what's happening to us, whether that is through prices of products or services, or what's happening in the land around us. But thank you very much for that question. Moving on, I can now move the screen. So this is great stuff. There are things we can do now, and this is one of them. You can get your free copy of this standard. It's sponsored by BEIS, the Department for Business, Energy and Industry. And yeah, give it a go. It will help you save energy. If you're an SME, a charity, a small organization, it is aimed at those sorts of groups rather than individuals. So yeah, do please share that knowledge as well. Share that address there, that link there, to anyone you think who might benefit from that. Other things we can all do now. Yes, we can eat less meat. Consider it a weekly treat rather than a daily ingredient. But removing meat entirely from the diet, I don't think would be practical for all sorts of habitat reasons, in that animals, particularly ruminants, do a great job of looking after a lot of our habitats, and without them that would just turn to eventually to woodland, which would not be good for any of us. We could put on, yes, an extra layer if the temperatures drop instead of turning up the thermostat. There are all sorts of things that can be done and lots of advice out there. I would suggest that people look around and digest and just act on what is practical for you and your lifestyle in the location you live. But things like this, that BS ISO 50005 is a great resource. And here's another one for you. For those wanting to reverse the trends of worsening storms, droughts and wildfires, BSI's little book of net zero. Take a screen grab or make a note of that link, or search for it online. Let me just double check, see if we've got any more questions coming in. Oh yeah, would you say the poll results indicate responsibility actions are much better targeted at those with the deepest pockets? I don't know, growing your own fruit and vegetables didn't seem to reflect that one. Yes, the polluter pays one, the question 6, that one, yes, definitely, it does suggest that. But I think it's much more nuanced than that. Life is not black and white. It's far more complex. So no, responsibility actions don't need to be targeted. It does help in some circumstances, but I say life is far too nuanced. Here's another chance for you to have a vote. This is the final vote. COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, is not over yet. In your opinion, oh, no, we're not going to be able to change the slide again here, are we? Let's see if this is going to work. Ah, yes. Is it going to be a good cop or a bad cop? Will history record it as being a positive one or negative one? From what you've read so far, from what you've seen so far, there has been some movement. There's been a lot of discussion, but we're still waiting for the end when we will hear about the action. So we are judging this unfairly at the moment, I feel. But yeah, let's see if we can do that that final poll. Yes or no? Has it been a good cop or a bad cop? I'm an eternal optimist, and I am hoping that we will see several good actions coming out of this, particularly around tackling temperature rise and help for some of the other countries that are feeling the effects more deeply than we do in the UK. Okay, there we go. Well, the answer there is 13% think so far it has been a good cop, and 88% think that it is not a good cop so far. Let's see what it's like at the end, and might all change our views, but only time will tell on that one. So my final question for you. Oh, no, it's not my final question. I've got a couple more to go after this. If you could deliver one thing at COP27, what would it be? Trying to think, if I had a chance to deliver one thing at COP27, it would be to encourage people to move away from mitigation, for people to just go all out for decarbonisation. I think that would be one of the biggest things that could be done on a global scale. Maybe with companies, I don't know, let's leave it there. If you could deliver one thing at COP27, what would it be? Please do type your answers in there. We'll see if we can review those in a little while. Consumers are key to cracking net zero, which is why I think with some consumers, maybe we could consider mitigation rather than just total decarbonisation. I think with bigger companies, they've probably got resource to invest in decarbonisation at a much faster pace than we're presently going. So yeah, consumers. Without consumers on board, we will fail, and they have to have trust in what they're being told. They have to be able to trust labelling on products and services. So here's the iceberg of a question for you all. Question 9. Should BSI convene a business COP, continuing where COP27 ends, but also the move to reduce emissions, deliver payments to countries badly impacted by climate change? Yeah, so should BSI convene a business COP, rallying UK businesses to collaborate on a convergence of ambition? Oh, as it says there, motivating UK businesses to invest in action reducing emissions. Sorry, convergence of ambition. It's words, isn't it? Yeah, what we're talking about is investing in action. That could be, I don't know, exploring new ways to invest profits in sustainable enterprises, or delivering renewable energy, all sorts of things like that. Perhaps even that carbon clock that wasn't so favourable earlier, that carbonometer. I don't know. Okay, we've got some answers in there. So finally, my last question for you of the day. Please do share this in the chat. What's the one action or lifestyle change you are personally willing and able to make to help bring down emissions on a personal level? What do you think? All of the responses and votes today, as I say, they have been recorded and they will be typed up, and the final analysis will be published on the Sustainability Standards Network page. Look us up, Stay Green, Healthy and Inclusive, please. If I had to do one thing, if I had to commit to one thing, and well, I've already done it. Actually, I haven't done it, but I have committed to it, which is to super insulate my home where I can and as I can. So that would be my pledge. Be interesting to read yours. Thank you. Thank you all for your contributions. I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible tomorrow at the conference and the awards ceremony. And thank you for your time and for your responses today.